Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Nazir daf Chav Tes, we are going to begin on the very bottom of Chav Chesem and Beis, 3 lines from the bottom by the Gemara. So we saw at the very end of yesterday's daf this Mishnah, which discussed the situation where a father has a right to be able to make a neder for his son. In other words, he can say that his son is going to be a Nazir. And it's something which only the father can do, but not the mother. And apparently the father can only do this to his son, but not to a daughter. And even though there are ways to protest, and therefore he won't be a Nazir, either he or his relatives, if he brings shtei sairos, that he shows signs of physical immaturity, that also will remove him because he's no longer under the jurisdiction of his father. Or if he would have his hair shaved during the time of being a Nazir, that obviously shows that he is making a macha in action. So on this, the Gemara wonders, Ish in avol isha lo, my time. Why is it that the father only has a right to do this for his son, but not to his daughter? Why can't he make his daughter into a Nazir? So Rav Yochanan halachahi benazir. It's a halacha Moshe Messina, as we saw before. That's what Rav Yochanan holds. That it's something in which we may not understand, but that's what it is. It's dafka a din deraisa, that when it comes to the father, he can only do this to his son, but not for his. Only the father can do it, but not the wife. Rabbi Yosef Chanina Oimer. So he says the reason why it's ish in avol isha lo, as we continue Chav Tes Amud Aleph, because we want to educate our child that there is a mitzvah of being a Nazir. So I can make him into a Nazir, so he should know. So on this, the Mafar says, "Taimad sha'ish madir nesbeno benazir k'dil chancho b'mitzvos." Now, ihachi fil ishanami. So what's the problem? How about his wife? His wife should be teaching his kid also mitzvos. K'saver ish chayav l'chanech beno b'mitzvos ve'in ha'isha chayeves l'chanech es beno. Or beno. So only the husband has an obligation, at least when it comes to the dinim of being a Nazir, that he's obligated. Says, that's what the Mafar says. So maybe it doesn't mean mitzvos all. It's talking about all mitzvos. There's no din chinuch at all. Maybe the mother does have a din chinuch. Maybe it doesn't. It's up to interpretation. But certainly there's no obligation for the mother to teach the son about the mitzvah of being a Nazir. Now, Bishlam Rav Yochanan, it should say Beno. The Bishlam Rav Yochanan halacha hi benazir atul hachi beno in bitalo. So when it comes to Rav Yochanan, he's very clean. He says halacha Moshe Messina. So even if we don't understand it, that's the din, the father to the son, and that's it, not to the daughter. However, Reish Lakish and Bitai, the father should be mechanech his daughter. Again, according to this, it doesn't mean necessarily that you have no obligation to teach your daughter anything, but maybe when it comes to the dinim of being a Nazir, that's not something which is part of the process. Question 1. Hish madris beno benazir madua lo as bito. One is halach Moshe Messina, or Reish Lakish holds bito ein chayav l'chancha. Okay. Weiter. Now, Bishlam Rav Yochanan halacha hi benazir hachi benazirus in benadarim lo. So why by nazirus but not by a neder? Doesn't make sense. They're so similar. It's halacha Moshe Messina. It's fine. That's what the din is. So since that's the halacha Moshe Messina, so it's dafka by a nazir, not by a neder. El Reish Lakish v'lo nadarim nami. So according to Reish Lakish, if it's about chinuch, so teach your child about nadarim. So your answer is you're right. According to him, you actually do need to teach. Loma boy cover. Loma boy benadarim delays nibul. When it comes to a neder, there's no nibul. It's not, you're not holding yourself back from drinking wine, all these things. So that certainly can be mechanech your child about. El afil benaziris islay nibul afil hachi chayv l'chanchai. Even that you have to teach. Even things which maybe are not so pleasant, you still have to teach your child these things. There's an interesting point. Chinuch is not just teaching your child all the sweet and beautiful things. Of course, that's important. But you should also, chinuch is teaching them the truth. even the things which may be a little bit challenging and difficult, not to sugarcoat it. That's the reality. So, if you look in the Mefarish, Lo Maboy B'Shar Nedarim Kigan Shedir L'Havi Carbon D'Leisli Nivel D'Mutter Lishtos B'Yayin. So let's say you made a neder, just not a neder. I can't drink wine, right? Or eating grapes or whatever, or eating dates. No, we're talking about a neder of I'm going to bring a carbon. I promise I'm going to bring a carbon. So it's a neder. So the reality is there's no nivel in there. You can still drink wine. You can do everything else. So the chiddush is by Naziris. But according to him, you're right. It's not just by Naziris, it's also a neder. You have to teach your child that as well. So Bisham Rav Yochanan halacha hiba Nazir haninatani micha o shemichuhu kodoivav. So there's a halacha mishmasinai that the din is that the child or a relative can protest and say, no, I don't want him to be a Nazir. Why? Why do they have a right to step in? Halacha mishmasinai. El Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina Amarish Lakish Kol Kiminei Hoin. Why do they allow these relatives to say, oh, I don't want him to do this? Kroivim the Amrinule Lo Tigmare Mitzvos. Don't teach him mitzvos? What do you mean? You're trying to teach him doing chinuch, trying to teach him to do a mitzvah, so the halacha is they can protest you from teaching him to do a mitzvah? I don't understand. Why would the relatives be allowed to protest? That's what the Mishnah says. Obviously they can, but why? If it's because of chinuch. This is an unbelievable answer. Ksavar kol chinuch doli chashiv lo nichale. Any chinuch which is not chashiv is not good, and therefore they could protest it. Says the Mefarish, Reish Lakish kol chinuch dolei chashivi le kigon chinuch the nazirus de bezayinahu. It's a bezayin. They come a galech roisho. He has to shave his hair off. So lo nichale leberei. It's not good for the child. It's a very unbelievable thing. So any time you see someone educating a child, but you see it's harmful for the child, you need to protest. What do you mean? It's not my child. It's a relative. Yeah, you're allowed to protest. If you see something that's going wrong for a child, it doesn't make a difference. That is not good education. And we can certainly understand in politics nowadays, there's certain things that we want little children to learn about, which maybe they're not mature enough to learn it. It could be even detrimental for their growth and development and for their health and mental state of mind. You have to protest. So there's an interesting point about shaving your hair. There is an isser of cutting off your payas, but a person is allowed to, if it's a din deraisa, if you're a nazir midiraisa, so therefore you're allowed to do this because that's part of the mitzvah of being a nazir. So you're allowed to shave off. Says the Mefarish, Afagav the Ovid Hakafa, Ukavar Alav Dolo Takifu, the Hachi Hu Halacha Mishmasina. Halacha Mishmasina says you're allowed to do it. So halacha you're allowed to cut off your payas, but it is a halacha Mishmasina that for your child you're allowed to do it. That's the halacha. El Rav Yosef Rabbi Chanina Amarish Lakish Kinel Chancha b'mitzvos is to teach him mitzvos hakavar b'hakafa. So how are you teaching him to do a mitzvah? You're teaching him to violate another mitzvah. So how is this acceptable? The whole notion of cutting off all your hair is only din d'Rabbanan. And therefore chinuch can come, the chinuch mid'Rabbanan, yoseh chinuch d'Rabbanan, v'dachi hakafa d'Rabbanan. They're on the same playing field. And since they're both d'Rabbanan, so therefore you could do chinuch d'Rabbanan, and therefore you could even do hakafas arosh, which is only d'Rabbanan. Bishlam Rabbi Yochanan halacha hi benazir ahachi megalech ma'isi carbon. That's the reason why I want to bring karbanos, because it's a din deraisa. And karbanos, obviously you have to make sure you 100% have to bring these karbanos. Oh, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina Amarish Lakish Keil Chancha b'mitzvos hakamaisi chol b'lazara. How is it shaykh that you could say that you can bring these karbanos? It's considered chol b'lazara because these animals are considered not really midiraisa. There's no chiyuv deraisa on this little child. Savar chulin b'lazara lav deraisa. So according to his opinion, chulin that is shechted ne'azara is not the raisa, and therefore because of that, whether it's the hakrava or the eating, and therefore and the Rosh says the mashma kol din nazir olav the karbanu nechel chulin v'azar l'adiraisa the oil v'shlomim yikruvu nadava v'hachatas chulin the yizruk hadam l'shem mayim v'hamurayim yaktir l'shem eitzim. Ayin the Rosh. Bishlam Rav Yochanan Emar halacha hiba nazir ahachi ki mitma maisi carbon tzipirin v'achol koyin malika. So one of the processes, if you're tameh, so you're supposed to bring a chata sa'oif, an oil sa'of, and the kohen will do malika with his nail, and that is normally you have to do shchita, right? But this is a special avoda in the Beis Hamikdash that instead of shchita you have to do malika for a bird. El Rav Yosef Rabbi Chanina Omer Reish Lakish haka'achal nevela. So according to him, it's in nevela because this again is not really a chiyuv deraisa. So therefore, he shouldn't be allowed to do malika. If he does malika, it's not a good slaughtering of the animal. According to Rav Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, he says that there is actually no din of actually having to shech the bird at all. So therefore, the whole notion is really b'chulin bazar lav deraisa, as we said before. So everything's durabanan, and therefore this chinuch durabanan can be push off these durabanans. The Savar Rav Yossi hachi, does Rav Yossi really hold this din that ein shchitel of min atayra? V'osanya Rav Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer menayin l'chatas of. If you have a chatas oif, shehi ba al safek, and it came in a case of doubt. On this, the Mafar says kagoin the leida o deziva she'enu nechelas. So in the situation, the din is she'enu nechelas. That let's say there's a suffix leida, she gave birth, is a bar kayama, right? Or the question is you're a zav. So the din is they are not allowed to eat this carbon. Talmud leimer b'hazav es zayvo l'zacho nekeva makash nekeva l'zachar ma zachar maybe carbon al vadai. It's only when you're certain after nekeva mevia carbon al havadai. So too, it's only when it's 100% sure. Uma zachar maybe al suffix. We know when it comes to a zachar, you can bring a asham taloi in a case of a suffix after keva mevia al hasafik. So maybe. And therefore, also when it comes to a nekeva, you can bring al hasafik. Says the Mefarish, af nekeva mavi carbon al safik leida. Uma zachar meminshu maybe al havada maybe al safik. That when it comes to the zachar, the same species that's brought for the vada is brought for the safik. So af nekeva meminshu he mavi al havada mavi al safik, which is a bird. So ma zachar, if we're making all these comparisons, ma zachar maybe carbon, you can bring in carbon v'nechalin, because an asham taloi is something which is eaten. So afne keva mavia carbon v'nechal, says the very last line, afne keva shemavia carbon min of al safik he nechal. So just like an asham taloi is something which is eaten, so too by the nekeva, it was brought also in this situation, it's also eaten. So the Gemara says, we continue Chav Testament Beis, lo. No, when it comes to that much, we don't compare the two. Ima Marta B'Zachar, when it comes to the Asham Talei, Shechin Isser Echad, there's only one Isser when it comes to not eating. Says the Mefarish, Ein Bo El Isser Echad, the Dilma Shumenhu, Mi'ida Achal, Vahashta Kamaisichol Nazara, Tarmanakeva Shishtei Isurin. It's in the Vela if you was a bird, and since it's you can't do malika, and also since it's not a carbon. So one is maybe it's not a carbon. This one is it's a nevela because of malika. So my shnei isurin lav isur nevela v'chol and ba'azara. It's isur nevela. So we see that one of these surim has to do with the shchita of the bird, that there is an isser, right? So how can you tell me that Rav Yossi holds over here that ein shchita of min Torah? It says over here that when it comes to the nekeva, it cannot be eaten, this bird, because when it comes to this oaf, you can't eat it because there's 2 isurin. Now, probably one of the isurin is isnevela. So we see clearly he does hold it's a problem. Maskav Rav Achabar Rav Ika v'Dilma Machayv Lehem Yishum Demischazi Katrain Isurin Midrabanan. Maybe the reason is because it looks like 2 isurin and it's only midrabanan. Says the Mefarsh, the Kaimer, the Kam Shavu Malika, the Is Ba Iser Nevela v'Chulin Bazor Alma the Sfirli Rav Yosef Shchitas Ayman Atayra. So he said maybe not. So maybe the next Mefarsh, my Shnei Isurin betraying Isurin midrabanan. Maybe it's only talking about the isurin are only on a rabbinic level. The Isser Malika of Isser Chulin Bazar Leisa El Rabbanon. That really, when it comes to the Isser Malika, maybe it's only the Rabbanon. So maybe that's what it's talking about. So Lema Ketanoi. Let's say, this is actually a Machokas Tanoim. So let us understand this. Ad Mosai Madir Es Benoi Ben Nazir. Until what age, this we saw before, is a person able to do this decoration that can make his son into a Nazir? So one answer is Ad Shavishte Cyrus, David Rabbi. You have up until the time until he brings 2 hairs and shows signs of physical maturity. Says Taisus Hainum Yom Yud Gimel Shanav Yom Echad. This is David's bar mitzvah of Elach. Okay, you have until 13 to do this. However, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ad Shegil Anos Nedarim. You have a different time which is called Anos Nedarim, and if you look in Taisus, he says, Hainu Shnas Yud Gimel, that's the beginning of his 13th year, Yud Beis Shana Nidar Nivdokin. At that point, he can make Nidarim, and they're examined, namely that at that point, he's already able to make a nether. So it's a machokas if this time goes only until his bar mitzvah, basically, until 13, or Anos Nidarim, when he's 12. Says the Mefarsh, Ad Shavishte Saras, the Hainu Ad Ben Shalosh Esri Shana, Shema Ben Yud Beis Shana, Ad Yud Gimel Shana, Im Adam Yodea, L'Shem Mi Nadar, if he knows to basically Hashem and to who he's making a nether, L'Shem Mi Hikdish, Devarv Kayaman. As is brought down in Masechtas Nidan, Perik Yotzei Daifen. So that is a machokas. My love, Tanahi. The Rabbi Savar, according to Rabbi, who says time of bring Shtei Saros Savar Halachahi Benazir. He says there is a halacha, the whole din of a father making this decoration to the son is a halacha Moshe Sinai. That even though the child's already reached Anos Nadarim, he still has the ability to remove it, which you would think he shouldn't be able to, because he's reached the age of Anos Nadarim, he's 12 years old. Nonetheless, the father can still do so. So Madirle, he still is able to do so, says the Mefarsh. Rabbi, the Oimer Ad Shavishte Cyrus Ksaver the Halachahi Benazir. Sheish Madiris Beno Benazir, Misham Hachi Madirlo Ad Shavishte Cyrus, Afgad Shegil Anos Nadarim. You would think once he reaches Anos Nadarim, so that should be it. So why does he say it's a year later by the time his bar mitzvah he shows Shtei Cyrus? It must be because of Halacha Mishma Sinai that just allows him to have this extra year to be able to make this decoration. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda the Amar Shegil Anos Nadarim, which is the time which, again, logically, when he's 12, he knows, Savar Kadil Chanchel B'mitzvos. Kivan did nothing Rishus. Once he leaves his Rishus, at that age, at 12 years old, Su Lo Mechayev. So we see maybe this Machokas, Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, is totally on this Machokas as to the latest time that a father can make a Mimada for his son. So Amri Lo. The Kuliyam Halacha Hi Benazir. Really, everyone holds it's Halacha Moshe Sinai. So, if it's Halacha Moshe Sinai, it makes sense why you would say Ad Shtei Cyrus. That even though he reached Anos Nadarim, nonetheless, you still have an extra year to do this. Here we're talking about a time which is a mufla samach ish, which is similar to what we said before. Says the Mefarsh, who's a katan shiodei l'hafleis. He understands. Again, he knows all of this. So he's, again, the age 12 years old. He's a mufla samach ish. He's close to the age of bar mitzvah. Rabbi Savar, Rabbi holds he still have to wait until he shows Shtei Saras, Mufal Samach Ish Durabanan. That's only did Durabanan. V'asya Diraisa, the Chi of Diraisa, because there is a Halacha Moshe Sinai that the father has a right to be able to make this neder, or his son to make a Nazir, Dachin Durabanan, can push off the din Durabanan, because the whole notion of being Mufal Samach Ish is only Durabanan. But Midiraisa, we have a Halacha Moshe Sinai that the father has a right to do this. So therefore it pushes off this time of Mufal Samach Ish and therefore it's only until the child's 13. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Huda said, therefore, since it's deraisa, so at that stage, the din is that his neder is an actual neder, and therefore he's left the father's rishus. The really, the whole point is it's the time in which a person teaches his child to do mitzvahs. So if that's the case, l'chayra, that should be only until he's in your rishos. But mufal samach is only doing rabbanon. So therefore, that's a rabbanon. This is the rabbanon. Rabbi Savar asi chinech rabbanon v'dachim mufal samach ish rabbanon. Since they're both the rabbanon, you can push it off, and therefore, since it pushes it off, therefore the child can still become a nazir through the father up until he still stays saras. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Huda Amar Shigil Anos Nadarim Ksavar Lo Asichinech Rabbanon V'Dachim Mufal Samach Laish, which is the question why, but he says that it doesn't push it off. One does not push the other one off. Okay, even though they're both the rabbanons. Question 3. B'may Kemifgi Rabbi Yossi Ad Matzai Ha'av Madir Espeno B'Nazir Im Ad Shiagdil o ad shigil anos nadarim. So again, one answer could be whether it's a machlokes tonight when they're holding Rishon Rabbi Yochanan. And he says two lamaskana, so they don't want that answer. So they say really, the halacha lamadir halacha he ben nazir. That's halacha Moshe Sinai. So you could say they argue im mufal samach ish is deraisa the rabbanon. So he said if it's already deraisa, so that if it's a derabanan, so then it still kicks in. But if it's deraisa, not. Again, whether or not one is derabanan, could it push off another derabanan? So then the Gemara continues. Actually, let's hold off 1 second and let's see question. Easy question, TB5. So let's just get this question down. On Matay Mader Ha'av Espeno Nazir, we saw this before, but this is just a clean question. Rabbi says Ad Shevishte Cyrus, and according to Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Huda, Ad Shegil Anos Nidarim. So it's a very simple question, TB5. So just wanted to say that quickly. And let's see if there's another question. I'm not going to do that one. And question. So let's see TA4 because this is actually we had a long time ago. Ha'ish madir es beno ben nazir ha'im gam ben nadarim amazet toli. So if you hold it's a halacha Moshe Sinai, then you would say hu adin ben nadarim. It wouldn't make any difference. However, if you would hold that it is so how about that? So again, it's a loma boy kaimer. So it's a loma boy. So really, the truth is, the answer should just be the same. Let's see how he says this. 4. Put the Gemara. Imatam mishum chinach imkin huadim minadarim. Ve'im tam mishum halacha. Hari rak ben nazir isi. I say. So that's what I said. So when it comes to halacha, Rabbi Yochanan he says it's ben naziris in ben nadarim loy. Right. So he just said it's halacha Moshe Sinai. It's only by nazir, but not by neder. However, if we're dealing with, if we're talking about instead because of Chanukah mitzvos, so that's for nadarim as well. Okay, let's continue. So leimam. Hani Tanai ki Hani Tanai. Let's say it's based on a different Machlokes Tanai B'Sanya. Mas Rabbi Chanina was a story with a great Rabbi Chanina. Shehidiru Aviv ben Nazir. So it turned out that his father said that you're a Nazir. The question is, how old is this kid? So Rabbi Chanina was brought in front of Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel Boiko. He was trying to investigate Leidaim Hevishtei Saras im Lo Hevi. So again, we see clearly, according to Rabbi Kiva, you have to show shtei saros. Rabbi Yossi Armeleda im higil anos nadarim yomlav. So again, it's the same machlokas over there. How long do you have to wait, or how long does he have a right to have to check? So Amrlo, so unbelievably, this little child said, or maybe not so little, he's close to 13. Rebbe altet sta'er, don't trouble yourself, laboid kani, don't waste your time. Im katanani abishalaba. If in fact you're baidik me and you say I'm still a child, so The reality is, then my father has a right to do this. So I'm a Nazir. Im gadol ani heya b'shvil atzmi. However, if I'm a gadol, I'm going to do it for myself. So I'm a manavshach, I'm a Nazir, so therefore there's not a reason for you to worry. Of course, you can maybe think that there really is a chiluk, as we said before, possibly because of whether or not you hold of all these dinim, if it's only din d'Rabbanan or is it din d'Oraisa. Okay, it's chulin ba'azara. So it's an interesting question. Okay. Anyway, so ayin mafarshim. It's a little bit of a difficulty because it may not necessarily be the same type of level of being a Nazir. So on this, Rabbi Gamliel v'nashka roishai. So on this, Rabbi Gamliel was so impressed that he kissed him on his head. It's clear that you're going to be more halacha one day. Amru, so it said, Taki was clear that he was going to be more hara, because he was able to think so deeply that he didn't even require, because don't worry, I'm a man of shach, I can figure this out by myself. So that's what it was. Now, Bisham Rav Yosi, Rabbi Huda, the Emerad Shigilanos, the Darim, I can understand that the cutoff point is when he reaches 12 years old. That's why he said, I'm a katan, then my father will do it. Because I'm only if I'm 12, if regarding Anos Nadarim. El Rabbi, the Emerad Cyrus, until you bring 2 signs of hairs, the Im Gadolani. So what does it mean, Im Gadolani? If I'm an adult, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this for myself. He's still, if you hold ad shigia anos nadarim, right? So, and you're not 13, so you are b'rshus diaviyakayim. You're in the father's rishus. Ella the omer aha b'shvil abba, aha b'shvil atzmi. So he says. He makes himself a Nazir b'shvil Abba and a Nazir b'shvil Atzmi. So Cyrus Mikar, if I produce 2 hairs originally, Karim Nazir's delay. So then I'll be a Nazir based on my own. Ubasof, if let's say I got 2 hairs later on after the Nazirus, Karim Nazir's de'avua. V'i'aisi b'mitzoi, if let's say he got his Shtei Cyrus in the middle, what's the din? It says in the Mefarish, Lo yadinan, we don't know, Iba hu shaita shadir, the time he made the neder of his father. The father made the neder, IC Cyrus. Elo, we don't know if he actually had the Shtei Cyrus at the time his father made that neder. Minicha, v'akivandi amra habishvil abba habishvil atzmi. So hanicha Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Ne'amar Shigil Anos Nadarim El Rabbi Ne'amar Shigil Ad Shiavi Shtei Cyrus Ma'ikam Emar. So what are you going to say in that case? So Amr Rabbi Leika Tekanta Ad Yoyev Liwe V'Yosef Diavue. There would not be a Tekana until he would sit for himself and also for his father. Let's look in couple more pieces in the Mefarish. Koimer Rav Yosef Yomid Ein Ha'av Madiro El Ad Shimegil Anos Nadarim Nicha Deloy Chal Leha El Naziris Achas. Only one Naziris would be Chal. El Rabbi Dermer Ad Shivishte Cyrus 2 hairs Kivadi Amar Habishvil Abba Habishvil Atzmi B'Shneim Yechayil and Hazir. They can both happen. A Milo Machayev B'Shtei Naziris L'Chay should be Chayev too. So we end up saying that Taki he would. So he says, skipping down, it says, V'id Aisib Emtsoi, Acher Shadiru Aviv, Kaidim Shabola Beistin, Lo Yadinan Ihani Be Cyrus Havi Be Kishadiru Aviv, O Havi Be Ad Hashta. So Hahashta, Karchach Yim Beis Nazirus Misfeka. We have to do both. The Dilmaloy Havi Be Shtei Cyrus, Mikara Ad Hashta V'Nimsa Nadir B'Shul Aviv. Okay, so according to this, then in fact you would have to do so. It says Taisus, Perish Yitzarch Shiyamtin, you have to wait. Rav Chanina have to wait. Yoim Acher Shadiru Aviv, De'oz Mamanavshach, Ika Shloishim, O Lifnei Havas Simonim, O Acher Havas Simonim, V'alo Nazirus Aviv. Okay, let's see maybe another question, then we will stop. Question 3 we saw. Okay. TA 5. No. TA 4. Adkan.